Hi. I know this isn't CIDR, but hear me out for a little bit. So, I pitched into the Death Battle Kickstarter, which allowed me to pitch an episode idea to the crew. The pitch was Raimundo from Xiaolin Showdown versus Yang from Yin Yang Yao. I think this matchup is really interesting and layered, and it's unique. I don't think anyone has really thought about this particular matchup before. Now, I got really nervous during this, so if you hear me verbally sweating, that's why. I hadn't really done anything like this before. I actually had a script laid out in front of me, and I think midway I just kind of stopped following it. I hope you guys like it anyway. If enough of you think that this is interesting as well, maybe I'll make a follow-up video and actually detail like the full lengths of why this matchup is really interesting. But for now, here's the video.
Yang Yo. This is in Xiaolin's
Yin yang,
Showdown. I don't think,
yin yang yo, yin
think
yang
we've
yo.
Oh,
done
I'm
either of these
surprised. Okay,
with
so
Yang Yo.
you guys are familiar with this show?
Haven't watched
Oh
either,
yeah,
but
and
like I
Xiaolin
know of
Showdown.
them.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm excited
Streamed in
then.
it.
I love the adventures of Omi and his gang.
I feel like
This
I might
game.
have missed the generation for
Jack
this one.
Spicer.
Oh, well, all right. In that case, let's get into it.
Cool.
Yeah, Raimundo versus Yang. If you excuse me, I hope I'm not stuttering a little too much.
You're all good, bud.
No, you're
You do your
good. You're
thing.
good, man.
All right. So, this is being recorded, by the way.
Cool.
Want to let you know. I'm sure that like everyone says this, but always want to be transparent about that.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So getting into this, the legacy, the 2000s era nostalgia. Uh, they came about at the same era as like Danny Phantom, Teenage Robot, American Dragon,
hmm
all those like teen superhero shows. Uh, I've talked to a lot of people who like remember Yin Yang Yo and Shaolin Showdown, but don't fully remember like everything about them. But like the characters are bizarrely powerful, like a lot stronger than you'd
hmm
probably remember. Additionally, they represent two channels that people have nostalgia, nostalgia for, Kids WB and Jetix. Like they included,
hmm
Jackie Chan Adventures, Puka, all of these shows that are very near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. I know that they're not nearly as relevant as a lot of other shows that are usually on Death Battle, but I think that the sheer quality of the matchup itself is most like more than likely enough to ease that in. And also Shaolin Showdown in particular, I know a lot of people love this show, and a lot of people would love to see it in a death battle. Uh, for story and connections, these two shows take place after ancient wars. These are like 100-year long wars with an ancient evil that had to be defeated using these mystical objects, the Shenggong Wu and the Wufu weaponry, respectively. Uh, both of these shows, like, they have this main villain who has come back from the 100-year long war and is threatening to, take over the world, destroy everything. With goofy side characters to accommodate them, and a grander evil that is coming like later in the show.
hmm
All right, both Raimundo and Yang started off as like cocky jerks. They're pretty much the assholes of their respective groups, and they are also talked down to a lot by their more gifted and just more accepted teammates. But they eventually learn to become like more grounded
hmm
in that they eventually go on to train on the next generation of warriors. Uh, as for like specific connections between the two, uh, the main thing that I thought of was that Raimundo and Yang both thought that their swords were completely useless until they actually learned how to use them. Uh, Going into scaling, I hope that I'm not going too fast. Cause
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
all right, But going into scaling, both of these characters scale directly to moon moving feats. Uh, these two these two feats are handled by two separate mystical objects, that being the Toilet Brush of Illumination and the Lunar Locket. Uh, when it comes to both of those objects, they scale to that because of like other characters that do scale to those feats and are generally just seen as superior. Those being Master Yo and Chase Young. That would make them large planetary. Realistically, they can go higher in scaling, but I think this is like the more realistic way to go for them. As for speed, they're both very consistent laser dodgers. There's not really any debate about that. And Raimundo in particular would scale to the Shard of Lightning by the end of his story. And the Shard of Lightning makes it so that you move as fast as light.
Just it just says that straight up. Just
Yeah,
you move as
just
fast.
straight
Okay,
up. That's the
sick.
description.
At least
That's its
clear.
purpose.
Straightforward.
That's nice.
Yeah, its entire purpose is that it goes faster than light.
Yeah.
So, powers and abilities. This is where the matchup gets really interesting because these two have a large arsenal of just wacky weaponry that they can throw at each other, an entire vault's worth. And that's where I think that this particular matchup gets its own identity, is the amount of counterplay that they both have. Because they both have even stats pretty much, uh, the objects have to do like most of the heavy lifting in terms of like determining a winner and showing the just like the brunt of the matchup. And that gets into some just some really interesting territory. So first of all, Yang's bamboo sword is capable of shapeshifting into other weapons. It can be repaired instantly by Yang, and it can be engulfed in flames for deadlier attacks. It can also be transformed, if you can see in the bottom right, it can be transformed into the Jam Hammer, which just splats jelly everywhere whenever he hits someone.
For sandwich making.
Yeah, it's perfect. Uh, For Raimundo, his main weapon is the Sword of the Storm. It enhances his wind manipulation. It can be combined with other Shengang Wu for other purposes. It can turn him intangible, but it cannot be used as a regular sword. It goes straight through other blades and people.
That's funny.
So, going into the more interesting counterplay, let's get into specifics. The Moonstone Locust. This is one of Raimundo's Shengang Wu. It sends out a swarm of locusts that can rapidly devour plants. Now, if you remember before, Yang's main weapon is a bamboo sword.
Yeah.
So a little bit of counterplay there. But as I said before, Yang can just regrow his sword at will,
Hmm.
which counters that whole thing. Until you get to the next Shengang Wu on Raimundo's arsenal, that being the Rio Reverso. What it does is that it returns whatever it fires at to its original state, such as turning a tree into an acorn, or fossil fuels into dinosaurs. Little fun fact, when Jack Spicer used this on a chicken to see which came first, the chicken or the egg, it just kept going back and forth between chicken and egg indefinitely.
Fun.
So-
This really like writes the first like I don't know 30 seconds of the animation. Like,
Yeah,
instantly.
seriously.
It's just like all right, cool little trade, locust, sword regrow, ungrow, and then it just back and forth for a second. It's really simple to see what like exactly how this goes so far.
Yeah, I even have a little graphic for this. So a little
Perfect.
little thing by one of my artists, and then it turns into the seeds.
Beautiful. You think it go all the way back to seeds?
I think it would,
Okay.
because
cool.
it turns trees into acorns.
Okay.
so-
yeah.
Uh, Moving on, these two items, the Toilet Brush of Illumination and the Lunar Locket, these two are objects that can move the moon. So, what I thought would be fun is if they had a little exchange between each other with like moving
Little
the moon
beam
back and
struggle with the
forth.
moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And eventually it turns into a game of galactic ping pong where
I
they're
like
just
it.
batting it back and forth between each other.
That's perfect.
I thought that would be fun. The Sweet Baby Among Us. So, the Sweet Baby Among Us is a golden statue that's a part of Raimundo's arsenal that can transform into a giant golden baby that has the ability to pelvic thrust diapers into people's faces.
Man,
Cool.
they were doing something
Riding their
different with
fetishes
cartoons
into
back
their.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
The
Wrong
2000s
one.
were crazy.
Yeah.
But, yeah. this this is actually one of the more powerful Shengang Wu overall, which is amazing. But on top of that, Yang actually does have counterplay to this. Yang's toilet brush of illumination not only moves moons, but it can also disable transformations. So what he could do with this is use it on the golden baby, and it would turn back into the statue.
Hmm.
Same thing for any of Raimundo's like transformation-based Shengang Wu. He has certain things that can turn him to electricity, or can like give him a larger physique. That would just disable that entirely.
Hmm.
Cool.
Moving on, they both have time travel hourglasses, which would cancel each other out pretty much because they do the same thing. But that's a nice little comparison that they both have pretty much the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And moving on to the poodle skirt of ultimate protection. This is a skirt that makes Yang completely invulnerable to all damage. So, pretty much incapable of being able to have anything done to you. Except Raimundo actually does have a counter to this, and that being the reversing mirror. What the reversing mirror does is it not only reflects projectiles, but it also turns whatever thing it's used against to the opposite effect. So if something is supposed to turn something incredibly heavy, it instead turns it light as a feather. So what would it do?
Invulnerable to everything.
Yeah,
Invulnerable to everything.
Yeah.
exactly. Poodle
Okay.
skirt of invulnerability just turns completely vulnerable. He can get hit by everything at that point. And yeah, that's pretty much the main thing that I wanted to go over. Just the bizarre counterplay that these two have. There's a lot more examples of this, of these like weird trades of abilities between
Yeah.
these two, and I think that it could make for a really interesting episode
Yeah, it
because
does seem like really well crafted for like a just constant back and forth, like this thing, this thing,
100%.
this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, and
yeah,
like just keep going. Yeah.
and I love that. I love that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it gives you the opportunity to go over like some just extremely bizarre weapons, like I mentioned before, the Sweet Baby Among Us, the
That
poodle
one is
skirt,
bizarre.
the
Yeah.
poodle skirt of ultimate protection. As you can see up here, they have these other things that I didn't even mention, like the 100 times power boost for their in Yang's underwear, uh, infinite knowledge on a roulette wheel. There's so many just bizarre little things that they have, and it would work perfectly in a battle.
Yeah,
Uh,
it seems really cool.
so yeah, questions, thoughts?
I mean, it just seems like it would like the fight would be really easy to write. Like it just
Yeah.
kind of writes itself. It's very cool, and I think
It's a
you're
great
right
idea.
that like this is like a weird nostalgia point, and like WB Kids especially is something that like I don't know people kind of long for. I know I
Yeah,
still think of Jackie Chan Adventures fondly.
Classic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I watched both Yin Yang Yo and Xiaolin when I was a kid, so I think that's. I'd never thought of comparing them, but they make it makes perfect sense, right? Like, what else would you do? It's
Yeah,
a great idea.
if you see
who do
the,
you think wins outright?
that's the thing. I think this is such an even matchup. I think it's
Hmm.
they have so much counterplay towards each other that you really got to go into specifics that I didn't go into in this because I only have like 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
I would say that I think that Yang wins overall. I
Okay.
think Raimundo has overall like a big slew of counters and just things that Yang has never seen before. But what I didn't mention before is that Yang actually has a pretty distinct healing factor,
Oh,
and
okay.
Mm.
also his range topples Raimundo by a lot because Raimundo can throw out gusts of wind that can cover like the entire side of a mountain, but Yang can reach into space with a lot of his stuff, which is not
Okay.
something that Raimundo has access to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool though. That makes sense. Yeah, it seems really interesting. That's a great one. Really appreciate you pitching it to us. This is awesome. We got to hop to the next one, but yeah, thank you very much.
No problem at
Thank
all.
you.
I'm very glad I got to do this with y'all.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, man. Have a good one.
You too.